Hello everybody, it's been a while since I made a video, so I wanted to make one today, a really special one. So as you can see here, mangoes are in bloom. We're here in South Florida and it's January and that's about the time the mango starts to bloom. This is a cherry tree behind me and it is loaded with blooms. Not all my trees are loaded or even blooming, but this one certainly is. This one particularly is a graft that I did of Juliet. And my other Juliet tree is doing wonderful also. That's great. But today it's not about mangoes or fruit trees. Today is about gardens. In most part of the country, wintertime is a time not to plant stuff in the garden. But in South Florida, summertime gets kind of hot here to plant most things. So here in South Florida, we plant in the wintertime. So I want to show everybody my garden today. And besides these wonderful fruit trees that just I love in the summertime, the spring and the summer and the fall, wonderful. And when you have fruit trees the right way, you're covered from all the way from the spring all the way to the maybe the late fall. And even in the winter time, we've been having abundance of fruit this winter between bananas, black sapote, sapodilla, persimmons, and you name it. There's a lot of winter fruits here, jujubes in season. But the garden's what I'm really excited about. I'm just learning more and doing more with it. So I always like to experiment with the garden to see what's going to produce the best food. My neighbor, who I learn a lot of stuff from, he has a thriving garden, and he keeps it very simple. And it's always interesting. Let me show you some of the things I've learned and some of the things that's growing on in my garden. Okay, I have several different garden beds. This is my oldest one. And in this, we've had an abundance of collard greens this year, which we always do. So a lot of them are not in this garden bed right now, because we've eaten a lot of them. And I just replanted some kale here. And I'm experimenting with this blueberry plant here that I planted a while ago to just see how that works, because I haven't had much experience with or too much fortune growing blueberries. So this, I just dug out a section of the grass here, and I took those trees out in the background and I planted new trees, because I had here 1, 2, 3 soursop trees, and this one was always thriving, but for years those two never gave me soursops. So I took them out and I replanted 2 new soursops to see how that goes. But what that did is it opened up this whole area of sun, and I created this bed here. Now we have some starters that we didn't start ourselves. I got these, but there's a bunch of kale starters there. There's 1 eggplant, and then we just recently put in some bok choy and some broccoli and cauliflower. So that alone, people don't understand this, that alone is a lot of food for one person and can give somebody a lot of food. For 2 people, it's more than enough. For a family, even possibly enough. Somebody once told me, even on a small plot of land like this size right here, you can have enough food for your whole family if you use it strategically. And I'm in agreement with that. Now, this particular yard, that right there is the septic tank. That means this is the drain field going all the way back here. And I don't want to plant any trees in a drain field. I got these dragon fruits in pots, so the roots aren't going to go into the drain field. I also didn't want a garden right over the drain field. But a raised garden, I didn't want the roots to go down into the drain field, but a raised garden bed is different. So this was my first raised garden bed that I had here, that I built with these cement bricks, very simple. And I got soil, part compost, part soil. And you can see there's this thriving in collards, which I planted. I love to juice collards. And that's the main thing in this garden bed, is the collards. This is the first year I put this garden bed to use. And it's over the drain field, but it's raised. So I'm not going to have any issues with the roots touching the drain field, or at least any contamination from the drain field into these plants. Now, you don't want to plant trees in a drain field because the roots can mess up the drain field system. These will never mess up, the plants will never mess up the drain field system, but the plants can get contaminated depending on what's in a drain field. That's why it's raised, it's safe, and it's fine. Now, around this bed, I have a couple of plants, which I hand water this. That's another thing. I could have easily put this on a timer and had the water come here every day, but I like to come in my yard and hand water it. So every day I hand water this section here, and I have some other trees growing. There's a butterscotch, sapodilla. These are just small trees. I have some red jabacaba, some fig trees, and another sapodilla here. These are just small trees that I surrounded with that, and the sun is coming from behind me. So the sun is coming from there. Now the only tree here is a lemon tree that I cut back, so it gives that all the sun I need is for this garden. Over here, and each year I try to find the best spot. I took out a longan tree that was there. There was a big longan tree there. I took that longan tree out and I put a Rinola tree in there. And that tree's going to grow, but until it grows back, I had all this space with the sun coming here. So I planted tomatoes. Now, where that mango tree is in the back there, I had a lychee tree that was thriving one year, but every couple of years only. So I didn't want to waste time with no fruit every couple of years, so I put a mango there. But that tree and the longan tree took up this whole area. Now that I got rid of those trees, I have all this room here. So I got maybe just a bunch of tomato plants going all around. And those I planted first, and they're doing wonderful. And these I just planted from seed, and they're doing great also. So that's that part. Now, recently, I put in an herb garden. Never much into herbs. I eat herbs, but I was never much into growing them because thought I couldn't grow enough that I'm going to use. But I use a lot of cilantro, so I planted some cilantro and some dill in this little area here. In this area, I planted basil, different types of basil, and some parsley or oregano. Now this is my newest garden here, my garden bed. I just got a bunch of broccoli and cauliflower that I put in this new garden bed. And again, it's covering the drain field, but it's raised, so it's going to be just fine. Again, I hand water this. It's right next to that one. I love to come out here and just hand water these. That's what I'll do right now after I get off this video. Here's some mint that I got from the store and I repotted into a bigger thing. Mint takes over, so I want to leave that in the pot. Now here's a tomato. This is exciting. This is my first tomatoes that are coming out this year. A little late. I planted a little late. Now here's what I did years past, and I love doing this. So this is a jackfruit tree that's not completely grown yet. I haven't gotten any fruit up here. I trimmed it last year. There's a lot of sun under it, but there's these bubblers. These bubblers are for the tree off my well. So I planted right next to it as many crops as I could. Sometimes I do collard greens. And this year I did this tomato plant right next to the tree. So the bubblers, so I'm getting the sun, I'm getting a lot of these, and here's my first harvest of my first tomatoes this year. I need to do a better job labeling which tomatoes these are. So where we go on that? And there's a bunch of, not just the tomato plants I showed you, but there's just a bunch all the way around. Now here's some potted plants that don't get enough water as they should, but that's basil and that's doing okay. I don't give that as much attention. Now I used to have this hole against the wall here. It used to be our garden, but number one, it was not getting enough sun, and number two, it didn't look that clean. It looked so much cleaner empty, and then I could just plant more things closer to this. So here's another example of I used to have a tree here, but I just put this papaya tree here. You have the bubbler, and you have the tomatoes right next to it. Let me show you another example right here. I have this mango tree. This is a steppe mango, by the way. It's really nice. And right next to it, I have some collards. Here's another great example of a persimmon tree right next to the bubbler. Thriving collards, thriving. I love to use collards this time of year. In my juices, they just do wonderful here in South Florida. And then here's just another new banana that's growing that I planted that I'm excited about. So So that's where we're at. And you see the trees have been trimmed last year. Look at all those blooms on that tree there. And here's a papaya tree that's doing really well. Some big papayas on there. But that's the garden. That's what we got growing on right now in our garden in this area. Here's a papaya tree growing right next to one of these bubblers. And I did have, oh, there's some collards there next to that. Oh, collards next to that sugar apple tree. So I just wanted to get on here and show you guys this. So that's what I have growing on here in my yard with my herbs and my greens. And I just wanted everyone to just get an idea not to neglect these, because they're such an important, probably when it looks at money wise, you can save a lot of money when you grow your own food and you know what you're eating. So grow your own food. And a good friend of mine, John Kohler, he has a channel called Growing Your Greens. Anything you want to learn about growing food, go to that channel on YouTube, Growing Your Greens. All right, everybody, have a blessed day and keep growing.